December always comes with sadness. It makes me feel overwhelmed, makes me miss something. On the 26th, I feel restless the whole night. I think about the cruel waves that took my mom.
The beautiful beaches of Khao Lak in southern Thailand have been a popular tourist destination for years. Most locals work in the tourism or fishing industries, and migrants have also been drawn to the area. 20 years ago, this area was devastated by the Indian Ocean tsunami. Masweswe Myint was only 20 years old at the time. Her parents had originally come to Thailand from Tanintharyi region in southern Burma.
My parents and brother were working on the construction of that building you can see now. We lived right here in the same compound. It was my parents' day off and also the day they were supposed to get paid. That morning, around 9 or 10, the waves came.
The tsunami was caused by a major earthquake off Sumatra, and it also devastated parts of Indonesia and other Asian countries. Khao Lak was one of the worst affected areas in Thailand because of the shallow sea floor and coastline. The tsunami waves piled on top of themselves and reached as high as 6 meters in some inland areas. Where Masweswe Myint's family lived was about 1 kilometre from the sea, but the waves came up beyond here, sweeping away her parents and brother. She survived because she wasn't in the area at the time, but later that day she began a frantic search.
Bodies were like trash, scattered everywhere. I wasn't scared. I told myself, I have to be strong. I must find them. I started poking and checking the bodies one by one. That night, I got a call from the hospital about my brother. My dad was in such bad shape that he was sent to Gatan Hospital because the local hospitals around here were full. We reunited as a family, but my mom was gone. She was missing, and it broke me. She was the only one we couldn't bring back.
About 4,000 people are believed to have died just in the Khao Lak area. Thais, international tourists, and migrant workers. This was 3/4 of all the tsunami-related deaths in Thailand. But the actual figure may be higher, and there are still people unaccounted for. Dorni lost all of her 3 children to the tsunami, her 10-year-old daughter and her 2 sons, aged 8 and 5. Her husband was a fisherman, but he was home at the time. They had no warning until a Thai resident ran past, shouting that a water demon was coming.
I couldn't bring myself to look back. I was terrified. I don't even know how to swim. My husband was running with 2 sons on his shoulders and dragging our daughter by the hand. I tried to carry the youngest. But as we ran, it felt like we were in a washing machine. At one point, my child slipped away.
Dorni lives in Ban Nam Kem, just north of Khao Lak. This fishing village was one of the areas worst hit by the tsunami. About 80% of the houses here were destroyed, and hundreds of lives were lost. Among them were fishermen who were out at sea at the time, who never came back. Some of them were friends of fisherman Ue Min. He was lucky that he was off work that day, and he had just enough notice of the impending wave to jump in his motorboat and flee upriver. Later, he was also able to rescue someone caught up in the waters.
He was caught in a wave, swept up and drifting in the stream. Somehow he'd managed to grab some floating foam and put it under his chest to stay afloat, still paddling. He waved at me, so I steered my boat closer and managed to pull him up. That's how I saved him. As for the others, I didn't see anyone else. I couldn't bring myself to go into the village. The water was too wild.
Those who'd survived or escaped the tsunami were traumatized, and many had lost family, friends, homes and possessions. Utu Chit was among those trying to help survivors in Khao Lak. He says the undocumented status of many Burmese migrants left them with little support from either Thai or Myanmar governments. But it was locals who stepped up to help.
There were many supplies needed, like clothes, basic food, and drinking water. Burmese people were scared to even collect aid supplies because they could get arrested. They hid in the rubber plantations. Local Thai people would bring them to us. That kindness to help each other with a humanitarian mindset during such a dark time, it was unforgettable.
December 26, 2024 will mark 20 years since the tsunami happened. For survivors who lost loved ones, the trauma has left a permanent scar. Dorni says the pain of losing her children feels fresh. She and her husband had 2 more children, and they make a reasonable living catching and selling fish. They went back to Myanmar for a few years after the tsunami, but it was the memory of her lost children which drew Dorni back to Ban Nam Kem.
When I became pregnant again, we worked hard to go back to Myanmar. But even when we left, I couldn't stop thinking about this place. It felt like we left our living children here. I couldn't leave them behind. I'm always thinking about them. The food offerings I would prepare for Buddha are also for them. I feel like they're still here.
Ue Min and his wife have a fish farm off the coast. He has a peaceful life, makes a good living, and enjoys his freedom. He wasn't tempted to move back to Myanmar, and as a lucky survivor, he's fatalistic about any future risks he might face.
Natural disasters, car accidents, motorcycle crashes. There's always something, every year. This, it was a once-in-a-century or even once-in-a-millennium event. If it's your fate to go through something like this, well, you can't escape it.
Masweswe Myint, her father and her brother, returned to Myanmar after the tsunami. But she came back to Thailand a year later when her mother's body was found. She ended up staying. She found work with a foundation which Utu Chit set up after the tsunami, which helps other migrants in the region. Masweswe Myint got married and settled in a village near the beach. She feels closer to her mother here, and also feels that she's fulfilling her wishes.
My mom always told me to help others, to be philanthropic. I didn't understand it back then, but now I see what she meant. The work I do now benefits people and is rewarding. I hope my mom sees it from wherever she is. I tell her in my mind, I've done it, Mom. I'm proud of what I've achieved.